بلند صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد
وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. For these few days that we've been together, we've been speaking about decision making from an Islamic perspective. We began by talking about the faculty of free will that Allah has provided with us and some of the meanings and some of the implications of that free will. We spoke about some general principles about decision making, the need that we have for knowledge of the goals of life and for the parameters of life that are laid down in the form of the Sharia, Islamic law. Then we looked at certain tools that Allah has provided for us for good decision making. Particularly we looked at consultation, shura, and we looked at istikhara, seeking help from Allah to find the best, and then as a last resort, resorting to kind of flipping a coin, using the Quran or using a subha and these sorts of things. Yesterday we focused in on one of those areas of life, using those principles, using all the kind of the preparation that we went through in all those previous lectures. Yesterday we started looking at some of these important issues of life. But we focused in particular on marriage and all the factors that go into making a strong decision, so that our choice for a spouse is the best choice that will lead to success in this life and happiness in this life and also in the hereafter. Today I want to turn to another area of life, another important decision that we often have to make. And similar to marriage, this is also going to be one that many of you have already made a decision on, for good or for better or for worse. Some of you may be happy in your decision, some of you may have regretted your decision. But in any case, whether you want to rethink your decision or you're going to advise younger people who have yet to make that decision, it's an important discussion to have. So we're going to look a little bit at career decisions, right? The decision for what kind of career to pursue, what kind of occupation to take on. And we want to see different factors that go into this so that we can make the most informed decision that we can, so that we expend the many hours that we inevitably spend working in a way that's pleasing to Allah and hopefully for a purpose that's also pleasing to Allah. First of all, I want to start with some general guidelines. Remember, one of the prerequisites that we wanted to have is we want to make sure that we have knowledge of the laws regarding these areas of life in which we're making decisions, so that we're sure that the decisions that we make are within those laws, within the framework of what's halal, and we don't cross the line into what's haram and unlawful. So with regard to work, paid work that we engage in, there are some guidelines. These are it's not an exclusive list. These are not all the laws we need to know, but these are some kind of very sensitive and very important red lines that we want to make sure we don't cross. So whatever line of work we might be in or might be thinking about getting into, we want to make sure that we stay clear of these certain red lines. These are mainly taken from, there's a book by As-Sistani's students. In Arabic it's known as Al-Fiqh lil-Mughtaribin. It's a code of practice for Muslims in the West. It's been translated into English as well. It's available on his website, sistani.org. And so I've taken some ideas from there and then more general principles as well from other places, from ahadith and so forth. But if you want to kind of review this, there's a chapter in there on working and earning and these kinds of issues. So, first of all, it's very important for us to, of course, we have to earn, right? It is very important that our earning be halal and lawful. Everything that we do with that earning is going to be a reflection of the earning itself. So if the money that I've earned is haram, then everything that I do with that money, the house that I buy, the clothing and the food that I buy, and all the stuff that I consume using that money is then going to have the effect of that haram earning, and each of those actions then becomes tainted. And we don't want to be in a situation where the very house that we live in, the place where we might pray most often, the food that we're putting in our stomachs and the stomachs of our children has been tainted, is now filth, because the way that I earned it was unlawful. So it's very important that principle, that we want to make sure that whatever we earn is lawful, and so we want to learn what are those red lines that we don't cross, so that we remain within the lines of what's lawful. So there are a couple of red lines. One is that we don't want to deal with interest in any way. Whatever line of work you're in, you want to make sure that you are not interacting with interest, riba. And this causes a lot of problems in the current economy. In the economy that we live in, there are certain lines of work, not all lines of work, there are certain lines of work that do deal with interest. So, let me give this disclaimer as well before I give examples. So I'm going to mention examples, I'm going to mention certain careers. It's not a personal attack on anyone. It's not, please don't take it personally if I mention your career as, maybe an example of something that's bad, that has some problems with it, that sort of thing. Take it as what it is. It's information that you need to have, and you need to maybe rethink your line of work if you find that what you are doing is crossing one of these red lines. So, for instance, working in a bank is highly problematic, right? Being the kind of a loan officer, somebody who's dealing with interest loans and mortgages. So there's one. Let me clarify this as well. Buying a house or buying something using a loan is permissible. Taking an interest-based loan is permissible. There are some workarounds. Our mujtahideen, they're very aware of these issues, and they understand the necessity of this. They understand the way the economy works, and they have found within Islamic law itself that there are ways that we can take this loan that we need to take to buy a house or a car or whatever other big expenses we have, and then there's a way to work around it. So that's not the issue. Taking the loan is not the issue. The issue is actually working with the loan. If your job entails providing that loan for someone, taking their interest. As an accountant, if you are now recording that interest on your clients, in your clients' taxes and so forth, then all of that becomes problematic. Right? So any of those sorts of dealings where your work is now based on the transaction of taking and giving interest, that's problematic. So that's one of the red lines that we want to make sure that we don't cross. Regarding intoxicating substances, this also becomes a big issue, especially for people who are dealing with restaurants and food businesses and gas stations and convenience stores, grocery stores, right? These kinds of issues are going to become extremely important, and they need to make this decision. What kind of, if they're part of a franchise especially, then maybe the rules for what you carry in your stock is not dictated by you, but by some higher up in the chain of command. And then you have to decide, are you going to partake in this haram kind of activity, or are you going to purify your business of that? So intoxicating substances, so we have a couple of things. In general, any intoxicating substance, so this, whether it's wine and beer, or other kinds of liquor, or any kinds of intoxicating drugs, not for medicinal use, let's leave that aside, but for recreational and intoxicating use, so buying or selling is completely haram. Using, of course, is completely haram. But what's important is that sometimes Muslims get involved with these things not because they're using it. They realize that it's haram, and that any religious and practicing Muslim is going to realize that's haram. Even oftentimes people who don't pray and don't wear hijab and don't do all the other wajib things that are there, at least this thing they know, that wine is haram, pork is haram. Those things they avoid. So that's not, inshallah, such an issue for anyone here. But what we don't sometimes realize is even buying and selling these things is haram. Even to the extent, especially with wine, the Sharia has come down very hard on this. Even, for instance, working in a grocery store as a cashier, where you don't have control over what the customer is going to bring to your cash register and what you're going to have to check out. If the customer brings liquor and wine for you to now scan, that becomes haram. That work that you're now doing is haram. Even from that distance, even to the extent, one of the examples that's given by our fuqaha is, even for instance, if you work in a restaurant as say a busboy, a dishwasher, and now and in the restaurant alcohol is being served, wine is being served, and now you're washing the glasses that are then going to be used to serve that wine. Even that's haram. If you're a truck driver, even driving the truck that transports that alcohol is not permissible. Even driving that is unlawful. Loading, I think as far back as you can go, any part of that process that leads to eventually someone drinking alcohol, drinking wine, any part of that process it's haram for us to be involved in that. That's the kind of, huge, encompassing red line that the Sharia has drawn around this particular disease of humanity, which is especially wine in particular. Okay, so that's one of the red lines that we want to make sure we stay clear of. Unlawful meat is also a problem. So let's divide this into two categories. I'm going to introduce some terms. Hopefully they're familiar. If not, I'll try to clarify them. So one, we have two classes of unlawful meat. Right? Unlawful meat could be halal meat. Right? Halal meat such as like beef, or halal meat such as chicken, or goat, or lamb, or camel. Right? Those are the halal kinds of meat that we usually have. If they're not mudakka, the term mudakka is an important term to use that we don't often use. Usually, I think people use dhabiha. Dhabiha is specific to animals that are slaughtered. But a more general term that applies also to fish and chicken and everything, even locusts and all the other things that are halal to eat, birds, right? Is mudakka. So mudakka means that you've taken a halal animal that by nature is halal, right? And then you've slaughtered it or captured it or done whatever it is necessary to now make that ready to eat. So for land animal, for a domesticated cow, for instance, it's slaughtering it the right way. For a fish, simply catching it in your net or on your line makes it mudakka. When you bring it out of the water and it dies, it's mudakka. Even if you don't kill it, you can actually, legally you can eat live fish, much less raw fish and all that. As long as you've caught it and it's now yours, that's mudakka and it's ready to eat. What else? Like something you're going to hunt, a deer that you're going to hunt, by saying Bismillah and shooting it and killing it, then that becomes mudakka simply by shooting. You don't have to slaughter it unless it's still alive by the time you get there. So my point is that mudakka is a more general term. So any meat that's not mudakka, it's halal by nature, but it's not mudakka, it hasn't been slaughtered properly, it's unlawful, it's haram to eat. Correct? So now what about dealing with this in my business? So the rule here is, of course, we can't eat it. But we are allowed to sell it, serve it, and so forth to those who consider it halal. Is that clear? So say you own a restaurant and you serve only beef, right? You don't serve pork. You serve beef. But say it's a franchise or whatever, and they give you beef that's not slaughtered Islamically. All right. So as long as the customers who are buying it are people who consider it to be halal, then you're fine. So the only place you have to watch out for is if a Shi'i comes in. Because even Sunnis, as far as I know, like the Sunnis I've had contact with, even they consider beef to be halal if it's killed by, if it's killed here in the West by a Christian or a Jew. So so they're fine. I mean, they can eat this as well, and you can serve that to them as long as they consider it halal. But if it's a Shi'i, then you wouldn't be able to. How you'll figure that out? That becomes your problem. You need to either know your community well enough. Or somehow you need to determine that you're not serving it and selling it to Shi'is. The reason why that's the case is because, well, that gets too complicated. I will explain the other part. Okay, so that's with regard to halal meat that's not mudakka, it's not been prepared properly, it's not been slaughtered properly. Pork is worse. Right? Pork, we're not even allowed to sell it or serve it, even to those people who consider it halal. So even if it's if it's someone who considers pork to be totally lawful, as a Muslim, I'm not allowed to serve it to them or sell it to them. Okay, so that becomes more problematic in grocery stores, franchises where you might have to carry pork if you own that franchise. Then there's really no way around it. Okay, so those become red lines that we have to deal with if you have those kinds of businesses. One more red line is lottery tickets. Ya nasib is the Arabic term that's used. So lottery tickets, this is also, it's unlawful to buy or sell So sometimes people who have convenience stores, gas stations, that tends to be the place where these are sold. So either owning the gas station where this is being sold, that's haram, or even being the cashier. You don't own it, but you're just working there to be part of that transaction where you're buying and selling. That's also haram. Yeah. I hear a lot of whispers and stuff, so I hope, inshallah, this is not an issue. But if it is, I mean, really, you might think, well, you know, what's the option? Like, we live in this country and we're surrounded by these things. What kind of jobs are left then, if all of this is haram? Right? It's true, there are restrictions, but think about it the other way. I encouraged the kids a couple of days ago when I was talking to them to also think about it, because their questions tend to be, you know, is this haram? Is that haram? Why is this haram? Why can't we do this? And we always look at the negative side of it, and I think sometimes our kids also, that's the message they take away from the way we teach them, that all the fun stuff is haram. And somehow Islam is restricting us and preventing us. We look at a glass half empty. If we realize that that's actually not the case, think of, you know, if there were poison here, and I let you all know and informed you that this is poison, avoid it, you stay away from it, you wouldn't say, oh, you're always telling us no, you're always telling us we can't do stuff, why don't you let us do the fun stuff? You wouldn't complain, you would say, thank you, you've done a great favor by letting us know what's harmful, and you know, we're grateful to you, it's a great thing that you've done for us. You'd see the positive in it because we see how dangerous that poison is physically for our health and life. The problem is we don't realize the great benefit that's there in Allah telling us what's halal and what's haram, drawing these lines for us. As Shia especially, one of the things that we know from the guidance of the Ahlul Bayt, and as part of the legacy they've left us, is we know that the laws that Allah has ordained for us in the Sharia are all based on real benefit and real harm. Allah doesn't simply, you know, kind of for the heck of it say, oh, let me just make pork haram, let's just randomly make something haram and let's just see what they do. It's totally good, it's beneficial, whatever, but I'm just gonna, for the heck of it, I'm gonna make it haram. Let's just make gold haram for men, let's just see what happens. It's not arbitrary like that, it's not just for the heck of it, and he just draws lines randomly, and just to see what will happen. As the creator of everything, as the one who knows us better than we know ourselves, who knows the benefit and harm inherent in all the things that he has created, he's now given us a manual to let us know where benefit lies, where harm lies. And so the Sharia is really a cheat sheet. It's really a way for us to know the secrets that we would never, otherwise either never know, or would only know through trial and error and much suffering on our part. Some things have clear harm, like muskirat, we know clearly that those things are intoxicating, we see the harm in them. But some things we don't realize how harmful they are. Eating najasa, eating something that's impure, we don't necessarily realize, we may not feel it. Eating pork, really we have no clue. People make different guesses about this disease or that disease or what it might do to us, but really we don't know for sure what the harm is. But we just know that you're not supposed to touch it with a 10-foot pole. One hadith mentions that one of the reasons why Allah has made it harmful is because it messes with our sense of honor and dignity. What's called ghaira in Arabic. Ghaira is a sense of honor. There's that feeling, just imagine the feeling that a man would get if he were to see someone look the wrong way at his wife or his mother or his daughter. That feeling of anger, of, you know, just hot-headedness, like that feeling that will come over him to defend those women that he has, that he's supposed to be protecting and supposed to be looking out for. That feeling is called ghaira. It's a very positive feeling that's reinforced by the Sharia that we're supposed to have. So it's a good feeling that we should have. When we don't have it, then we should question ourselves and say, well, what's wrong with me that he can look like that and I don't feel anything? Right, so one of the things that we're told that pork does, it has this effect. Again, we could never put it in under a microscope and examine it and see how it affects us physiologically necessarily. It's a spiritual, emotional sort of effect that we may never have ever figured out for ourselves. But because Allah has guided us to this one, to this one benefit, this one hikmah behind that law, we now know it. But my point is that we should realize that this is a great blessing. It's part of the guidance that Allah has given us. We should be grateful to Him that He's made us privy to, given us this kind of hidden knowledge of some of the benefits and harms that exist in the world, and not see it as, oh, why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? Everything's haram for us. And see that I'm so glad that Allah has told me where I'm not supposed to go, what I'm not supposed to do, so I can remain safe, I can have the healthiest life in this world and the best spiritual life as well, and not partake in those things that have no good for me, or whose evil outweighs its good. A couple other principles. So we talked about some of those red lines. A couple other principles to keep in mind. So the work that we choose, it mustn't entail anything that harms Islam or Muslims. So that you can think in very broad terms. That's a general principle now that we have to keep in mind and think the nature of our work. Is it going to lead to the harm of Islam's image or particular Muslims? Right, that would become haram work. On the other hand, the work must not provide aid and support to anyone who is targeting Islam or Muslims. We can't partake in work that's going to now attack Islam, the image of Islam, that's going to promote propaganda against Islam, in any way kind of bring the image of Islam down, or cause any harm to Muslims. And one final principle I'll mention is the work can't entail degrading yourself as a Muslim. Any sort of work that's degrading to you as a person is haram work. Allah has given us, by virtue of our Islam, by the virtue of the fact that we believe in Him, He's given us as mu'mineen izzah, right? Honor, dignity. And that honor and dignity that has been given by Him, it's haram for us to do anything that reduces that harms that image. So on a side note, one of the things, for instance, that it's haram to do, we're not allowed to expose our own sins. Say I've committed a sin, nobody knows about it, and now I come and I tell all you know what I did last night, you know what I did, and I tell you my sin. It's haram to do that. Why? Because Allah has a system in place to protect the honor of Muslims. كم من عثار وقيت كم من ثناء جميل لست أهلا له نشرت. Right, in Dua Kumail, also in Dua Al-Iftitah, these sorts of things are mentioned. Allah has covered so many of our deeds. Just imagine how many things you have done, and if anyone had found out about it, then think of what kind of an insult to you it would have been, what kind of a degradation for you it would have been. Right? All of us have those kinds of things that we've done. But think back now, how many times have people actually found out about any of those things? As believers, one of the things we know that Allah does is He guards our honor. Right? So even though we have done things, He'll make it so that it's almost like we have a force field. He'll turn people away. People won't see. They won't find out. They won't know what I've done. And He does that to help me to save face. He could, if He wants, He could crush me every time I do anything. He could expose it to the world. He could degrade me. But then that would lead us to complete hopelessness. And what's the point of continuing? But He gives us this. He allows us to save face, so that no matter all these sins that we commit, as long as we don't do anything to degrade ourselves, we don't expose it, we don't talk about it, then He'll keep it secret for us, to give us time to figure it out ourselves, to realize that, yeah, I made a mistake, I'm sorry for it, I'm going to repent for it, I'm going to fix it. That's the goal anyway. He doesn't want to punish us. He doesn't benefit from punishing us. What He wants is for us to be guided, to become better. That pleases Him. It doesn't please Him to punish us. He punishes us because we've proven that we deserve punishment, that we've given up on, or we've failed to improve ourselves and to fix the mistakes that we've made. That's when He finally punishes us, because we've left to no other choice. But what He wants to do is guide us and improve us and get us to a better place. And He knows that that's going to happen better if He protects us and guards us. So one of the things that we're not allowed to do is to degrade ourselves. And so any work also that leads to our own degradation, being subservient to someone who can now dishonor us, who can now order us around and put us down, these kinds of things, we're not allowed to put ourselves in that sort of situation. That's not the kind of work that we want to partake in. Okay. Let's go back to that question. I asked, so what does this leave us with? If we have all these red lines that we can't cross, we live in this country, what kind of work is left for us? So there's two verses in Surah Al-Talaq that are very important. Memorize these verses if you can. Chapter 65, verses 3 and 4. Allah says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Yes. So He says, Allah says, anyone who fears Allah, who has taqwa of Allah, and in this context, anyone who fears God is going to necessarily stay away from what's haram. Right? So anyone who stays away from haram because they fear Allah, they know Allah has laid down these red lines, I'm not allowed to do that particular kind of work, so I'm going to stay away from it. Whatever the consequence, so I don't care. Because Allah doesn't want me to do it, I'm going to stay away from it. That's called having taqwa of Allah. So anyone who takes that kind of attitude towards Allah's laws and says, I'm going to do whatever He wants me to do, whatever the consequences are. يَجْعَلْ لَهُ مَخْرَجًا. And Allah Himself will open doors for that person in places that He never even knew there were doors. You think this is a dead end by making this decision and choosing, for instance, to act on the policy of not shaking hands with non-mahrams. In a culture where this is the very first thing you have to do when you meet someone, but you say that, well, this is haram for us, I can't shake hands with a woman who's not married to me, and she can't shake hands with a man who's not married to her, or related to her. And I say, well, that's the law, I'm not going to go against it. Whatever happens, happens. That seems like a dead end for many of us. It seems like, well, the next time I go into an interview, a job interview, as soon as I say that I can't shake hands because of religious reasons, they're going to say, okay, there's the door. The next client I have, and I say, I'm very happy to meet you, but I can't shake hands because of religious reasons, they're going to say, well, I have plenty of other people I can do business with. So it seems to us that's a dead end. Allah says, I'll open doors for you where we can't even. We think doors are open for us. We think we open doors for ourselves. We don't. Allah is the one who puts those doors in front of us. And so He says, I have control over that. I'll open doors for you. Because you've taken a step to please me, I'll open doors for you and open opportunities for you that you never expected. That doesn't mean that those people will necessarily take it well. You might lose that client. You might lose that job. But what you'll find, if you follow through, if you test this verse and commit yourself to taqwa, you'll find that opportunities will open up that in reality are much more blessed than whatever you lost. You'll never lose this way. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. And if you're worried about sustenance, Allah will provide you in ways that you never even imagined. Again, we think that we have control over our paycheck. Nothing could be further from the truth. All we can do is work. We have no control over whether we get paid or not, how much we get paid. And even if it is a contract and we get a regular paycheck, we don't have control over. Think about how much that money actually lasts us. The barakah that's in that money is definitely not in our hands. If you have money that is not mubarak, you earned it in wrong ways, or you haven't done what you're supposed to do, you've been stingy with your money, then Allah will find ways to take that money back from you. He'll impose sickness, disease, accidents, plumbing problems, like all the different things that we have so many expenses over. He'll increase those sorts of things, and He'll take the money back from us. You'll get a speeding ticket, and a couple $100 will go just like that. Right? He'll find ways to take the money back from you. Or the money just won't work, it won't last very long, it won't be blessed. On the other hand, if you do what He wants, even if the money seems like a lot, the numbers in your bank account seem like I shouldn't be able to survive very well based on this income, based on my standard of living, you'll find that somehow everything works. Somehow He makes it so that all your expenses are taken care of, and your You're living a comfortable, happy life. You're able to do everything you're supposed to do, and you still have some despair. All those examples that we have of the prophets, they're not just, they're showy miracles that Isa alayhi salam performed, where he could feed the multitudes with a single fish. But it's not only for them. That barakah and that miraculous barakah is there for all of us. If only we do this. If we have the taqwa, then يَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبْ. That's the same phrase he uses that Maryam alayhi salam uses for her food. Right? إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ. Allah provides to whomever He wishes with no accounting. So it's not only for Maryam, we can also access that sort of miraculous sustenance and barakah in our food, in our provisions. وَمَن يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. Anyone who trusts in Allah, Allah will suffice him. Allah is enough, and He'll make sure that He suffices us. Another verse in the Quran, so that verse tells us that, even if it seems like these restrictions are hard to deal with, don't worry about it. Allah knows better. He's made the laws, and now that we have a situation where it's difficult and maybe the options that we have in front of us, they all end up dealing with some of these haram things. If we make the conscious effort to say, I'm not going to deal with all this stuff. I don't want to deal with all the haram. Let me find something. It might pay less. It might not be exactly what I thought I was going to do, but it's halal, and I'm going to make that choice because the other options are haram. Then Allah will make the rest work for you. If we say no, really there's no option. I live here in this, there is no option. If you live in this country, you have to, and when in Rome, right? When in Rome, you do as the Romans do. So we have no choice. Another verse is very telling. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ تَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ ظَالِمِ أَنفُسِهِمْ قَالُوا فِيمَ كُنْتُمْ. Allah talks about these people whose souls are taken by the angels of death, and then they question the person and they say, "What kind of life did you? What was your problem?" And these people had wronged themselves. They had lived lives of sin, and the angels will chastise them and say, "What was wrong with you? Why did you live like this?" قَالُوا كُنَّا مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ فِي الْأَرْضِ. Oh, we had no choice. We lived in this land, we lived in this country, it was the law of the land, we did it as the Romans did. What choice did we have? We lived there, we had to abide by the rules and the norms of that society. قَالُوا أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا. The angel's response to them will be, God's earth is so wide, so vast. Did you have to live in America? Did you have to live in that particular place where you felt like you had no options? Were there no options anywhere else on earth? Allah owns everything. If you can't find a halal way of living here, go somewhere else. Hijrah becomes wajib on you. Right? And so that is no excuse. أَلَمْ تَكُنْ أَرْضُ اللَّهِ وَاسِعَةً فَتُهَاجِرُوا فِيهَا فَأُولَٰئِكَ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ وَسَاءَتْ مَصِيرًا. So those people, that excuse will not be accepted from them, and they end up in hellfire. They made the wrong choices thinking that I have a good excuse for Allah. I'll be able to explain it to him. And that excuse is not legitimate. Okay. Recite with salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Okay, so we've talked about some of those red lines. And by the way, so I mentioned the hijrah, that's not the answer that we need to necessarily resort to. Right? I live here, and I'm American, right? And the same for so many other scholars and also other religious people. I'm not saying that that's our option. I'm saying that's not a good excuse. Saying that I have no choice and I have to deal with these kinds of haram transactions and I have no choice, that's not a legitimate excuse. If you really feel that there is no choice except to engage in haram, then for you the only option is hijrah, to leave here and go somewhere else. But I and many other people who are trying to do their best to follow Allah's laws, right, we found ways to make a halal living here. So I'm not saying we can't live here. All Muslims should leave America. Don't misunderstand me. That's not the point. All right. So now let's think. We found out some of those laws. Then some of those red lines that we can't cross. I also want to mention some of the ideas that I have about the kinds of considerations we should have when we're thinking about careers, either for yourself or now for the people you're going to be advising. as older and wiser people who have already done all of this, right? You become a great resource as a mushawir, someone who can do shura and consult with people who are still to make these decisions. All right, so let's keep some different ideas that I want to share with you. So think about the nature of jobs and kind of think about this as you're thinking about what kind of job to take. Some work, some careers are simply means to make money. The attitude of the person who takes on that career, again, it can change from person to person and career to career. But there's situations where I don't really care about this particular career per se. I haven't dreamed my whole life of being a cashier at this restaurant or at this grocery store or a mechanic or all the different jobs that people have. It's simply, this is a job that came up, it's halal, and I need to make money, so I'm going to do this job. And if some other job comes on that pays better, I'll do that job, that's fine. Right, so that's one kind of career that people have. And it's not just those kinds of low paying jobs, even higher paying jobs can also be the same way. Oftentimes, I think if people are honest with themselves, people get into medicine, for instance, which can be a humanitarian job, but oftentimes people get into it because it's a high-paying job. And so it's basically just a way to make a lot of money, which is fine. Right? I'm not criticizing that, but I'm saying that's one kind of way to look at work. That work is basically just a way to make money, to make sure that I can live properly, support my family, support the community, do whatever I need to do. And the work itself is not really that meaningful to me. But it's also possible to find careers and jobs that are meaningful in and of themselves, where the work itself is meaningful. Where you can find satisfaction not only in the paycheck, but also in the actual work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And so that's one thing to keep in mind, that the only option is not to find the highest paying job and make the most money. Also realize that there are plenty of careers, and especially now in this country, we have a lot of opportunities. If you're creative, if you're a little bit willing to kind of step out of the box and go against the grain of our community, there's so many job opportunities out there that are in and of themselves meaningful. All right, some of the considerations to think about when we're thinking about what kind of career to choose. One is, it's really important to look at the lifestyle that is associated with that particular career. What kind of lifestyle is this career going to push me into? So for instance, is it a career that's going to be so overwhelming in terms of its demand on my time and energy that I have no time for family and community and my own religious development, for service to others? If that's the case, does that really fit with those goals of life that we talked about? Right? The reason I talked about those was because we want to have those goals of life in mind when we're making these decisions. When we were making those marriage decisions yesterday, we talked about it, and even today when we're making these career decisions, what is the goal of life? If you notice, there was happiness on our list of goals of life, happiness, but not wealth. The pursuit of wealth, riches, was not one of the goals of life. It's a means that you can possibly use to attain some form of happiness, but it's certainly not a goal. The primary goal, if you remember, was what? Ibadah, right? وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. The sole reason why I've created you human beings and jinn is so that you worship me. Right? So that's the primary goal that we want to fulfill. So if a career is not going to let me fulfill that goal for which I was created, then that's not the right career for me as a Muslim. If I want to be a Muslim, then I need to look for jobs that are going to mesh with a lifestyle of doing ibadah of Allah. Right? So it's got to allow me time and energy to spare so that I can balance all those 3 or 4 different categories that we read in that one hadith that I quoted for you from the Prophet, where he said that in a Muslim's day, there are these 3 different times, the waking hours at least, there are those 3 different times: a time for work, a time for play, and a time for worship. If we don't have those times programmed into our lives and your job doesn't allow for it, then there's something wrong with that job. Okay, so that's one consideration. What kind of lifestyle does it entail? Especially prayer. Like out of ibadah, think about prayer in particular. That is the most important of the ibadat that we perform. So does a particular career allow for that, for me to offer my prayers on time? I've encountered people who they have jobs that are extremely grueling, and they might start at a very early hour, and it's just like, it's kind of like it's a job that once you're on the clock, once you start, there's too much happening. You can there's never a free moment, because for instance it's dangerous, there's machinery and all this different stuff, and so once you're on, you're on. There's no break until at the end of your shift. And say he would start, for instance, at 5 a.m. and he wasn't off until the end of the shift. And when prayer time came after 5, then he couldn't pray. So if that's the kind of demand that a particular career has, then that's not the job for a Muslim. Either you find a solution, find a way to make it work, to let yourself pray, or if there's absolutely no way, then that's not the right job for you. Alam takun ardullahi wasi'ah, alam takun. The jobs of Allah wasi'ah, there are plenty of jobs out there. Why pick that particular job that prevents you from doing the most important thing for which you have been created? Specifically for women also, when you talk about lifestyles, that, again, don't misunderstand me. I'm going to say this very carefully. So there is room for a Muslim woman to work. There's room for that. Islam allows for it. It doesn't impose any responsibility on her. So a woman has no duty to support her family, to support her husband or her kids. Absolutely, there's no duty on her part. But there is the leeway. If she chooses to work, then she's able to work. She's free to work, and whatever she earns is her own money. She has no obligation to use that money for family expenses. She has no obligation to give that to her husband. It's her money that she's earned, and it's completely hers. But a woman should think and should consider in the court, if she's thinking about a career and that's the option that she wants to choose, is that going to fit with the lifestyle that she wants to live? So she should consider what kind of lifestyle she's expecting to live in her life, in her family life especially, with children, with her husband, with whatever else she has in mind how her life is going to be, and see and make a careful decision, is a particular career going to mesh with those expectations that she has of her life? So often I've seen, kind of in the fervor of college life and choosing majors and choosing careers and kind of equality of men and women, all these things that our culture here kind of promotes, that without any sort of thought to the future, so many Muslim girls, Muslim young women will choose, just kind of go into a career path without considering what's going to happen down the road. And especially some kinds of education are more like training than education. So you're training for a particular kind of job, a particular career. It's not general education. It's not education that you can use in various areas of life. It's training for a particular kind of career. And so if you're going to get into that and spend a lot of money, a lot of energy, a lot of time studying that, and at the end you're never going to actually use it, and then you realize, oh, actually, the life of a lawyer is not really going to fit with my expectations of life, so you never actually practice or use your law degree, then really what use was it? Again, the message is not women should not go to get educated. That's not my point. My point is just take some time to think, what is my expectation in life? Do I want to have a family? Which is, again, the Islamic ideal. It's not wajib, but it's the Islamic ideal to have a husband, to have children. So if I'm going to have that, then how I'm going to balance things, and what kind of a family life am I going to have? Am I going to be a working mother and have other people take care of my kids? Am I going to put them in daycare and have those kinds of situations? Or am I going to devote my time and make sure the kids are raised the way I want to raise them? If that's the case, then how is that going to balance with family, with work? So all that has to be thought of. That's my only point. Think about those things so that you make a decision that's based on the expectations you have, the lifestyle that you hope to live. And you don't kind of get caught off guard at the end of the aisle on graduation day saying, actually, I'm not going to even use this degree I just studied. I just paid $40,000, $60,000, $100,000 to earn. I'm not going to actually use it to do anything that I thought I was going to use it for. Another consideration that I want to end with is what kind of career. So that consideration was like, what kind of lifestyle do particular careers entail, and how does that relate to my expectations of life? What kind of lifestyle do I want to live? Is there Is there a mesh between those, and between the goals that Islam has laid out and the allowances that a particular career allows for? Another way to think about it, another important consideration is what kinds of careers, what kinds of occupations and jobs and what kind of work is going to be beneficial to Muslims and to Islam. I think that's a very important consideration to keep in mind. And again, so this is kind of the second kind of job. Remember I said one kind of job is where your goal is to make money, and then you can use that money for Islamic causes. Certainly you can use that now to invest in the community, to set up foundations and grants, these kinds of things, you can use that Islamically, there's nothing wrong with that. But there's also the chance and the opportunity for us to make our career itself beneficial for Islam or for Muslims. And that's also a very interesting way to look at career choices. And you'll realize that there's so many options. Those of you who are younger, don't think that the only option is that you have to either become a lawyer or an engineer. That's a false choice that our youngsters are given. Maybe not necessarily by their parents, but by cultural expectations, by the way our community is. And it's a false expectation. It's such a narrow way to think about life and the work that's out there. So I want to throw out a couple of ideas of different ways, different kinds of careers that could serve the Muslim community in some way. So there's some kinds of careers where you can exert influence over society, and through influencing society, you can then influence it in such a way that it'll help Islam and Muslims. So think of policy and government-related jobs, where you now start to understand how government works, how to become involved in policy making in such a way that you can now influence the policy, the law-making process, and create laws that at very least look out for the interests of Muslims. You can definitely make money doing that. You can make a living doing that, and it's such a fulfilling job where you're actually now making a difference, maybe in a small way, but those small ways add up to something big. Right? So you can actually influence the way things happen from a policy perspective, a law-making perspective. Or other kinds of ways, like through the arts and filmmaking. Think of the influence that films have over us, the culture that we learn from films, and how we're always longing for. Every time a Jewish movie comes out about the Holocaust, we feel, I wish someone would make a movie like that quality, Schindler's List quality, about some Muslim issue. Because those Holocaust movies have been so successful in creating this whole culture amongst the world, in the minds of the world, that's sympathetic to Jews, that then allows Israel to do whatever it wants, and everyone can say, and no one can say anything because they're afraid that if they say something, then they'll be seen as being so cruel. How dare you say something? Look at poor people. They're persecuted so much. Just give them a break. So it's created this culture worldwide in the hearts of all people, Jewish and non-Jewish, where everyone's sympathetic to the Jews in that way. That's a huge influence that they've been able to have by making really entertaining movies in many cases. Movies that are blockbusters, that are top-notch movies, directed by Steven Spielberg and that caliber of directors. And generally, the Muslim productions, while in some cases good, are never of that caliber. The best movies that we have now about Imam Hussein are produced by from Iran in Persian. You have 3 layers of subtitles. It's from Persian to Urdu to English, and they're excellent. And I benefited a lot. My family's benefited a lot. I know the community's benefited a lot from those kinds of movies. But where are those compared to Hollywood blockbusters? So that's a real career that people can get involved in, where you could have incredible influence over people through the films that you make. And it's an area that we have very few people in. There's certain kinds, so those are jobs that can influence society in such a way that it benefits Muslims. There's some kinds that maybe facilitate Islamic causes, pave the way and help Islamic causes to move forward. Media-related jobs are like this. I think if we have newscasters and reporters, or whatever the next generation that's going to be, as that particular kind of niche of careers kind of dwindles out as things start to change from paper, print to whatever's coming next. But whatever's going to replace reporters, we're still going to have that kind of career and that niche where we need people to go and research things and then report to the rest of us. that also you can do so much. You have the power over information. You now control. You're the gatekeeper for information, and you can spin it and you can present it in a way that's now beneficial to Islam and Muslim causes. That becomes a very influential sort of way where you can facilitate Islamic causes. Having advertising abilities, right? Understanding the psychology of people, how to present things to the world. And that's a kind of area where you can influence people in a way that they don't even understand that you're influencing them. That's how advertising is. It's subliminal. In ways we don't even realize it, we're being influenced to buy things and to be interested in things. We don't even realize that's happening. There's an art to that, there's a skill, there's a science to that, and that has to be learned and mastered. And if we have people in that kind of a field, instead of just being doctors and engineers, then our community will start to take off and start to be able actually to do something. Because right now what happens is we have, generally, most communities, they have plenty of money because they have, generally, a lot of the members of communities are doctors and engineers and wealthy businessmen and these kinds of things, but we don't really have a lot of people to do stuff with it. We don't have people thinking about how can we use that money in really beneficial ways beyond majalis and food. The majalis and the food is a facilitator, should be a facilitator to get us to all sit around a sufra, a tablecloth, so we can all look at each other and talk to each other and exchange ideas. That's the purpose of food. The purpose of the majlis should be a way to educate, to reinforce, get us focused, and then point us out to the world and say, okay, break, this is what we're going to do. And then we get energy from the majlis and direction from the majlis, then we go out and do important things. But we can't do anything if we don't know anything besides how to cure sick people and how to fix broken whatever and build machines and things like that. Those are not such important tasks when you think about how to build a society. We need people in all sorts of diverse fields so that we can really do a lot of good in the world. We need people in nurturing fields. There are ways you can nurture and educate, right? In the teaching field, for instance. Teaching should not just be something that women do when they can't think of anything else to do, and then they say, okay, I'll just become a teacher. Or in our Sunday schools or Islamic schools, sometimes it's just like, well, whoever's not doing anything, let them go ahead and become teachers. Of course, that's not how teaching works. Teaching is an art and a skill that takes training. It takes so much experience. You need to go through that experience and training and get to the point where you can now become an influential and effective teacher. So we need people to engage in that and become teachers so that we can do that sort of thing. Curriculum design is another part that we lack tremendously. I've been part of efforts where we're looking for people who are experts in curriculum design, and in our Shia community we have very few people who are in this area at all. Nobody with top-notch experience. And that's something that we're lacking. The Sunday school director knows that this is something that every community is struggling with. What curriculum to use? Why isn't anyone coming up with a curriculum? Because we don't have the resource. We have the money, but we don't have the people to actually do the work and make the curriculum in a way that's going to be solid and do the job. There are kinds of careers that will provide niche services for Muslims that we need. Things that only we need because of our particular laws or culture or whatever it is. So we need halal organic meat that's cheaply available. That's a struggle. Sometimes it's very hard for people. It's only in the last couple of years, I think, maybe the last decade at most, that Charlotte has halal meat. I remember I had my uncles have lived here for a while, and they used to struggle. There'd be one person like 2 hours away. You'd have to drive and get meat for the month and stuff like that. And it was a struggle. Right? There are plenty of places around the country that don't have this. That's a niche that can be fulfilled. We need someone to go and not only be a farmer, but be a smart farmer that provides halal and tayyib meat. Right? Halal is not the only consideration. It should be tayyib as well. Tayyib means good, pure, not fed junk and trash, and then you slaughter it Islamically. You say it's halal. It should be fed with good things. Right? What we're learning from science now, that going organic and going green and feeding your animals good things, it influences the taste and the quality, and then eventually your health. That's smart. We should act on that and have businesses that do this in an economical way and provide that service to Muslims. There's probably a lot of money in that too. We just need people who are entrepreneurs who will go after it and take care of those kinds of niches, and they can make a lot of money in the process, and then they're providing a niche service to the community. That'll be a great service to the community. Non-interest banking. We need people who are smart, who can figure out ways that fit within our Sharia, as Shias especially. All the efforts that we have so far, for the most part, have been in the Sunni schools for non-interest, interest-free banking. We don't really have anything much the Shia, so we need people to do that. Athletic facilities. That's another niche that we have a need for. Many times our women cannot go anywhere because there's no decent place where they can have hijab on and exercise, or they can not have hijab on and exercise. And even men have the same problem. We can't go to a gym where there are women who are indecently dressed. That's haram. We can't go to a swimming pool where women are even if I'm dressed decently, if there are women who are indecently dressed, I can't go there. That's the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani and many of the other Maraja. We can't put ourselves in a position like that, where we're inevitably going to end up looking at haram. So we need to develop the facilities that will allow for men and women to do all the things they want to do recreationally in a halal way. That's another huge niche that needs to be filled, and it's probably a big business opportunity as well for someone who has the creativity to make it happen. Two more. There's some kinds of work that will solve Muslims' problems. Again, we have very few people in careers that will really help to... Now, how much can we do? If someone has a drug addiction and they come into the Muslim community, or they're Muslims to begin with and they have a drug or alcohol addiction, or any of the other kinds of problems that people have in society. Right now, we don't have the wherewithal in our communities to solve those problems, to help them with those problems. We have to turn them over to somebody who has no Islamic background, and they try to help them in ways that aren't in sync with Islamic values, or AA, or other kinds of organizations like that. Or we have to resort to other religious groups, Christians and other religious groups that have done work in this and have experts in their community, pastors who are now specialized in these kinds of fields. Why can't we have that? We need to have people who are trained as counselors, who have these skills, social work, who have the skills to be able to set up real infrastructure. So our sadaqah, for instance, isn't just a matter of collecting sadaqah and then just giving it to whatever charity we can find, or just, not really having any sort of plan for how we give our zakat al-fitra and other sadaqah that we collect. But rather, we now have an institution, we have an infrastructure, we know that, okay, this is how much funds is going to come in, here's a system in place, and people know they can come here, we're going to go through the system, and then we're going to help them out, put them in housing, deal with their addictions, support them in their health problems, all the different things that we have. Here's the system that we have. But that takes skills that people can go into. Instead of becoming doctors and engineers, do these useful skills. Become experts in these kinds of skills, and you'll benefit the community so much more. Or finally, there's an important career in law that will then protect Muslims. There's so many people, I'm sure you know people as well, Muslims who have been targeted by different kinds of law enforcement because they're Muslims, unlawfully, unjustly, and we don't necessarily have enough people to defend them. And it's another huge area. You can become a lawyer because you'll earn a lot of money, and that can be your goal. But what I'm talking about is becoming a lawyer and getting that expertise so that you can turn around and do something good. Right? We need people in the system who understand the system, who can influence the system, that can defend those who are unjustly being targeted and persecuted by our own government. That's one of the interesting things and really notable things about our government here, is that we're able to fight so vehemently against the system and still be good card-carrying citizens. I can be a perfectly good citizen and be very angry with my government. That's fine. We can do that. Right? We should do that. We should take advantage of that and go into these careers that will eventually serve the community in a way that will uplift us, inshallah. Recite Salah, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Alright. Sorry, I went a little bit over. I'm going to stop for a few minutes and answer some questions, then we'll go into the Masail. Any questions on careers in particular or other things I've talked about?
Are there any other books to decide what career you want to go into, like Islamic books, other than the Sistani one you told us?
Yeah, and he's asking about book resources, about careers. None that I know of, unfortunately. That's another job opportunity.
Yeah.
Right? Career, what is it? Their office is career guidance, the career counselors, I think. That's their whole offices that have like where you have a specialist who just helps people to find careers, to find opportunities, help you to apply for jobs and stuff like that. I don't know of any resources. If anyone else does, that would be a great thing. Any other questions?
Sister, working as a loan officer is haram. So what about the people who are IT engineers and working for a bank and developing the software for loan application? Is it haram because they are purely into IT business? They are not into banking business.
That's a good question. So he's asking about like kind of a couple of steps removed from the loan itself. If you're developing the IT that's going to end up being used by the bank. That's a good question to ask. Right? If you go to say Sistani's site or whoever your Majlis site is and ask that question and say, here's lay it out clearly. So those things that are muqaddimat, those are kind of preliminary steps that will eventually be used for this thing. Is that also haram or not? Generally, what they say is no. If there's not a direct correlation between what you're doing and what's eventually being done, like the ball stops somewhere in the chain. It doesn't keep on going back inevitably or infinitely.
I think this question is more important in relation to what you talked about, alcohol, any process.
Yeah. So with wine in particular, we have that sort of really wide net of what's haram. With alcohol in particular, that's because we have a hadith for that, where the Imams and the Prophet have come down really hard on alcohol, even to that, like explicitly have said, even if you grow the grapes that are eventually going to be used as wine, that's haram. But with other things, we don't have that sort of blanket statement, and so it's the job of the mujtahid to figure out where does the buck stop.
Is working in non-Muslim countries like US on mortgage is still haram, because I think a fatwa or Ayatollah Sistani that a non-Muslim, if you're working on loan or mortgage thing on a non-Muslim country, so it's acceptable.
No, it's still not. It's still not. Yeah, you missed the beginning of the discussion, but we talked about those in more detail in the beginning. To the sister's side.
Working on a project that might contribute to the defense of the United States. Is it that?
In the military?
Defense, yeah.
No, defense. So working for the military of the United States is not allowed. And none of the marajid that I know of will allow that in any way.
You say that's not allowed?
It's not allowed. Working for the military.
Is it living in this country is allowed?
Absolutely, yeah.
Why? Working is not allowed, living is allowed. Why?
You didn't hear the whole discussion.
We
Yeah.
have discussion on that. Why?
Listen to the whole discussion. Right? It was very clearly addressed that it's not living here that's a problem, and it's not that there are no options. Some of the options that people tend to choose are the wrong options. There are plenty of options out there that are halal. They may not be exactly what you wanted or exactly the kind of paying job that you wanted, but you'll find plenty of careers out there that are completely within the bounds.
Ibadah is our first responsibility. We have to do our prayer. We have to look for a profession where we can comfortably do our prayers, right? If I am an emergency doctor or I'm a surgeon and I have a patient dying there, so I have to leave dying patient and do my ibadah? Is that what I'm supposed to do? How is that profession?
So when you ask the question, just ask your questions in a way that's respectful. Because I'm being very respectful with your issues as well. So you also pay that courtesy and be respectful in your questions.
What I want to know is, as a doctor, if I choose my career as a doctor, there are different lines of like emergency
Yeah.
doctor.
No, I understood your question. Let me answer it now. So, no, I mean, Islam is very. If you know the rules for prayer, you know that, for instance, the prayer time for Dhuhr is quite long. If you think of it now, from 1:15 all the way till 6:30. During that time, you have that 4, 5, 6 hours to pray Dhuhr and Asr prayer. So no, that your issue will not come up. If you have an emergency patient and you're dealing with that person for the first 2, 3 hours of Dhuhr time, you can delay it until the end. But once it comes to the end, then I don't think you'll have shifts that are that long that are going to go through the whole prayer time. And if you do, then you can probably take it up with your supervisors. But somebody can replace you, or as a last resort, if it's going to be qada and you can't leave, then you pray your prayer as you are, without wudu, with tayammum or whatever you can do. Then their last kind of there are solutions for all of that. Those are all specific problems that some people have.
Yeah, it's not that you have to leave and then you have to say, okay, my conversion, I was not good. I have to.
No, clearly. No, clearly, Islam puts a premium on human life. More than saving a person's life is more important than saying your prayer on time. And so that's a clear principle that we have.
And the people who drive
Okay.
cabs,
So let's go ahead and read the. I know there are a lot of questions, so unless we can expand it, I think in the interest of not. I think what we can do is on the day of Ashura, we have a 2-hour slot or so between the end of the majlis for Ashura and the evening program. So if you all are amenable to it, I'd be willing to have kind of a more general Q&A session. Yeah, and I think it's probably going to be logistically hard for people to leave and come anyway because a lot of you live far away. So if we're stuck here anyway for that time, then we might as well we can make use of it that way. That way it's more flexible and can kind of delve into it instead of 5 or 6 minutes for questions.
We have some time, Maulana, for the zikr of Brother Fast maybe tonight also, or if in case.
I'm going to say a little bit of musibah for Ali Akbar. Recite the salawat, please.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Before I start, let me just clarify this as well, that about these the different kind of nights for different personalities from Karbala. This is a cultural thing that has come about in different, Irani or Iraqi or kind of subcontinent cultures, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. But there's nothing kind of that says that this particular night has to be for Ali Akbar, that particular night has to be for Abbas. There's nothing written like that. It's just a cultural kind of thing. My goal is to try to delve into different stories of all these people who are all amazing, and some of them might match up. I think Ali Akbar might be the date night for Ali Akbar, according to the. It sounded like somebody said a Marsiya for Ali Akbar today, so I thought maybe by chance it happened to coincide. But anyway, I'm not deviating from something that's written. I'm deviating from a cultural practice, intentionally, so that we can be exposed to all the various amazing personalities that were there at Karbala. When all of Imam al-Husayn's companions had been killed, only 18 men from the Banu Hashim remained. All were from the progeny of Abu Talib and Fatima bint Asad. That itself is something amazing to realize. We say the Banu Hashim were there with Imam Hussein, his companions, his family was there. But we should realize that in particular, all of the family, all 19 members including Imam Hussein, all of them were descendants of Abu Talib. They're all Talibi. None of the children of any of the other brothers of Abu Talib were there. None of Hamza's children, none of Abbas's children, of course none of Abu Lahab's children. And none of the other brothers or sisters' children were there, only Abu Talib's children were there. That's the kind of, that says something huge about who Abu Talib was and who Fatima bint Asad were. 6 were the sons of Ali ibn Abi Talib: Al-Hussein, Al-Abbas, Abdullah, Ja'far, Uthman, and Abu Bakr. 3 were the sons of Al-Hasan ibn Ali: Abu Bakr, Abdullah, and Al-Qasim. 2 were the sons of Hussein ibn Ali: Ali and Al-Akbar and Abdullah al-Radhi'. 3 were the sons of Aqil ibn Abi Talib: Ja'far, Abdul Rahman, and Abdullah. 2 were sons of Muslim bin Aqil, Abdullah, and Muhammad. And 2 were the sons of Abdullah ibn Ja'far al-Tayyar, Aun, and Muhammad. The first to proceed to battle was Ali ibn al-Husayn al-Akbar, Imam al-Husayn's eldest son. He had been born in the year 33, according to some reports, making him 27 years old on the day of Ashura. His mother Layla was the daughter of Maymuna, who was the daughter of Abu Sufyan, thus making her Yazid's first cousin, and him Yazid's nephew. He requested permission from his father, and it was granted. As Imam al-Husayn sent him to the field, he pointed toward the sky with both hands and said, "O Allah, you be my witness over them. A young man is going out to fight with them who is the most similar person to your messenger Muhammad in appearance, manner, and speech. Whenever we longed to see your messenger, we would look at him. O Allah, deny these people the blessings of the earth. And when you have denied them, divide them and ruin them and scatter them. and let those who rule over them never be pleased with them. For they called us and promised to help us, then they turned on us and have fought us and murdered us. Then Imam Hussein yelled at Umar bin Sa'd, "What do you think you are doing? May Allah wipe out your lineage and deny you His blessings in all that you do. May He release upon you one who will slaughter you while you sleep. For you have wiped out my lineage and have ignored my kinship to the Messenger of Allah." As Ali ibn al-Husayn al-Akbar advanced toward the enemy, he chanted, "Ana Ali ibn al-Husayn ibn Ali, nahnu wa bayt Allahi awla bin Nabi. Wallahi la yahkumu fina ibn al-Da'i, adribukum bis-sayfi hatta yanhani, darba gulamin hashimiyin Qurashi." I am Ali, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. I swear by the house of God that we are closer to the Prophet. I swear by God that this son of a bastard shall not rule over us. I shall attack you with my lance until he falls to his knees. I shall strike you with my sword until he submits with the blows of a son of Hashim and a son of Ali. The first Kufan warrior he met was Bakr ibn Ghanim. At seeing this accursed man take the field, Al-Husayn's face paled, and Ali's mother Layla asked if something had happened to him. Imam Hussein told her that he was about to fight with someone because of whom he feared for his son's life. He commanded her to pray for her son and quoted the Messenger of Allah who said, "A mother's prayer for her child is answered." Ali ibn al-Husayn al-Akbar fought fiercely. He returned to his father who told him, "Return to the battlefield. I hope that before evening your grandfather will quench your thirst with a chalice filled to the brim with a drink after which you shall never thirst again." As Ali ibn al-Husayn al-Akbar re-entered the battlefield, a person from the Kufan army called out, "O Ali, we wish to take into consideration your kinship to the commander of the faithful Yazid. If you wish, we shall grant you amnesty." Ali retorted, "My kinship to the Messenger of God is more deserving to be taken into consideration than my kinship to Yazid." As Ali ibn Hussein al-Akbar fought, Murrat ibn Munqidh al-Abdi said, "May all the sins of the arrows be upon me if I don't bereave al-Hussein of his son." With this he ran a spear into Ali ibn Hussein's back. Then he struck him on his skull, and the rest of the Kufans began striking at him with their swords. He fell forward and wrapped his arms around his horse, at which his horse mistakenly took him deeper into the ranks of the Kufans, where they cut him to pieces. At seeing this, Al-Hussein called out, "May Allah curse these people who have killed you, my son. How insolent have they been with Allah, respecting the sanctity of the Messenger of Allah. I throw dirt on this world after your death." السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى